And there's
Did you
no
consult
question.
Did you consult the school's attorney before you signed this?
I'd like to go back just a little bit. I do have authority to sign a number of things, and not every ticky-tacky thing comes to the board. I take the authority and I take it seriously. As far as investigating alternative funding methods, I think that's something that the school district and the board and the administration have done and need to continue to do. And as an alternative funding method, in order to gather the information, they had to see what the information was, to see whether it was worth passing along to the board. If this board doesn't want us to look at alternative funding methods or how we can expand our budget in other ways, that's fine. Take that directive. But at that time, we were looking at what we could do for school funding, keep our programs and keep things viable.
But you ultimately claim, I've read the articles, Mrs. Martin was the spokesman, you ultimately claim that you did not implement this transaction in large part because of the transparency issues. It was cloaked in secrecy. And yet, you presented this meeting, at this budget at the September meeting, and it was going to go ahead if nobody knew anything about what was going on, but lucky for us, Frank Zadra does know something about how this stuff works. He was very confused at the time, raised the stink at the meeting. I was there, I know what he said. The article corroborates that. And then Tim resigned. Now, how many times do you have a guy resign and then say, it's because I wasn't given information, that finance information that was shared with other people, and I was the vice president at the time. He resigned. Then, only then did you say, oh, you know what, we're not going through with this. There's too much heat on us right now.
That is a huge assumption.
This is exactly what happened.
Mr. Holland,
we weren't born yesterday. We were not born yesterday. That's exactly what happened. You tell us what happened.
It is not accurate.
Okay.
Tell me what is accurate.
What happened?
What happened? Did he resign for some other reason? He said not.
He has his own reasons.
He said not.
I don't know why he resigned.
Well, have you ever talked to him?
I have talked to him, yes. But, you know, you can't make reality out of assumptions. You know, you're a lawyer.
And speak.
You know better.
And speak. My case is strong, and I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah? Well,
Yes.
So my next question then is...
I was there.
You were there, so was I.
And
I was at these meetings, and you were going to present, you presented the budget in September of 2011. After he resigned, and after Frank Zadra made a stink, you quit it. You said, we're done with this. There's too much secrecy. It doesn't make any sense.
You're making assumptions.
Okay, well,
I'm not making an assumption.
Let me ask you this.
It's a fact.
Between the annual meeting on September 28th, evidently, and the October meeting on the 11th, or I don't remember the date, but 2 or 3 weeks later, a conscious decision was made to alter the budget. Who made that decision? Because there was never a board meeting between those periods. There was never a committee meeting. You know, I remember commenting, you know, over the last 2 years, like, you have one committee meeting a year, you know, for the budget committee. So at some point, somebody had to make that conscious decision to alter the budget. Who made that decision?
Well, if we back up a little bit, to go, when we were talking about going into the annual meeting, and Steve, you might need to stop me at some point, we were formulating a budget and didn't know whether we should formulate a budget based on normal or using a formula. We could not get a meeting of the board together to find out whether we should use one or the other, and so we made the decision to print for the annual meeting, because the annual meeting has to be noticed twice before the annual meeting. Made the decision to use the formula because that way, if the board decided to use the formula, that's fine. If the board decided not to use the formula, it could always revert to a more normal-looking budget. If, on the other hand, we had printed a normal-looking budget and then decided after that to use the formula, that would have been deceptive and underhanded. And so we decided to print the formula budget. for the annual meeting. Prior to the annual meeting, there was a closed session meeting where contract with the BLP company was discussed. However, no action or recommendations came out of that meeting. So we were left with where we were for the annual meeting. Following that, the budget as it was presented was voted on at the annual meeting and was fine. But the decision was made beyond that by the board president and myself. Neither of us were going to put a contract with BLP on the agenda because we didn't like the secrecy. And without having a contract with BLP, we could not enact the budget. And so we had to alter the budget back to a more normal-looking budget.
This non-disclosure says the contract is not signed until after the money is collected. So you didn't have to sign a contract.
We weren't going to sign a contract.
Well, you didn't have to, because the agreement says you don't have to do it until after you collect the money. So that's a way for you to say, well, we didn't hire them. You know, we don't hire them until we actually hand them the cash for collecting the extra money, potentially $250,000. So I'm not sure how you can say what you just said. And I've been told that there was a faculty or a meeting of employees the next day after the annual meeting, that after school, where you said, the budget's fine. We have figured out a way to fund the school, at its current levels or with more for the foreseeable future without going to referendum. I mean, do you deny saying that?
No, I don't deny saying that.
Well, how? How can you do that? The only way you can do it is to invoke this budget.
Right.
Yeah. So, but then so again, between the annual meeting and the regular board meeting in October, somebody made the decisions, and of course it doesn't sound like the whole board was involved again. I guess that's a real openness and transparency issue I have. I really do. And I think this community has been suspicious of the way the school has done its business for a long time, and this just validates it.
25% of this community has that feeling.
Well, so what? I don't care if it's 100% or 1%.
I think
We still have an obligation to be open and transparent. Would you agree that what happened in that from May of 2011 to October of 2011, was that open and transparent, Paul?
It's why it never happened, Nate, because it wasn't open and transparent.
It never happened because Tim resigned.
That's your assumption, and that has nothing to do with it.
Well, did you have input on
The
it?
heat came down on you.
That has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Well, then what?
I will tell you that with my hand
How did
on
it
a
get
stack
this
of
far?
files.
How did it get so
Tim
far?
Reedy's resignation had nothing to do with that decision. Nothing.
You tried to do your thing. Thank you.
Nor did any of that. The reason that this thing never came down was because it wasn't open and it wasn't transparent, and nobody felt good about it.
We felt it was legal, but it was unethical.
Then why is finance information withheld from a fellow board member who was the vice president at the time? What's up with that?
No
How do you
clue
explain
what
that?
he's saying about
How do
that.
you explain that?
He wasn't at some of the meetings.
You know what
He just
What
wasn't
meetings?
at some of
What
the meetings. He
meetings?
was trying to
There
get the
aren't
information,
any
and he was
meetings noticed.
refused.
As far as I know, Tim had the same access to the information that Phil had, that I had, that Bev had. As far as I know, everybody on the board had the same information.
How do you know?
Well, he said otherwise. He said he was denied. He said he was denied
don't
the
know.
information.
I
guess
yeah.
Tim's a liar.
No, I'm not saying he's a liar.
Well, said he was denied the information. It's very clear what he
If
said.
that's so, it's beyond my ken. I have no idea what he's talking about. It wasn't my impression at the time. His resignation had no effect on my decision-making process.
You weren't asked.
I was a board member. I was part of that discussion.
When?
I don't
That
remember the
discussion
dates
had
for
to have
sure.
taken place between September 28th and the October board
Yeah.
meeting. Don just said the decision was made by Maureen Reback and himself.
To not put a,
Yeah, to not put the budget. He didn't say you put in input.
We had discussions about this.
When? It wasn't, there's nothing.
I don't remember
But
exactly.
there's nothing in the
I was
public
made aware of
record.
it. It was a.
There is nothing in the public record that says a meeting took place between October 28th and the next board meeting. So you couldn't have had discussions. Or you violated open meeting laws.
I'm not sure what violation of an open meeting law is. If I go into Don's office and talk to him about things, is that violation of an open meeting law? Because I do that regularly. I think that's my job, is to communicate with the superintendent. Am I in violation of an open meeting law by doing that?
Well, it depends on what you discuss. It depends on what he asks you. If he asks
Mr. Weld, am I violating an open meeting law?
No, if you listen to what Nate read, it's board members talking to board members. It's not the administration talking to individual board members.
Right. I've never really felt like I'm doing the wrong thing by talking to superintendent.
I think the issue here is the sequence of events. Basically, you have a person that comes to you and says, I've got an idea that I think could save the district some money. But my idea is, you got to enter the confidentiality agreement because I may be able to sell it to other places. Statutes specifically allow trade secrets as being exempt from the open meeting law. There are a number of situations in which transparency don't work. For example, we're going to sit down with the teachers and bargain settlement. If we say we're going to go 2.07% this year in closed session in terms of committees going out there, you think the teachers are going to settle for less than 2.07% if that information is done in public? Of course they're not. Or we're trying to buy some property across the street, and the board says you can spend up to $100,000 on that property. But you think the person across the street is going to sell it for anything less than $1,000 if that action was taken in public? A third area, or an area in which the board is given the right to do confidentiality, is in a situation in which there's a trade secret involved. This is a trade secret as that statute is defined in 13490, or as that term is defined in 13090. This is a situation in which transparency, which is the goal of every government, doesn't work because the person's not going to tell us the secret unless we agree to doing something in closed session. So basically, we enter into a confidentiality agreement, by which we establish that there are a certain number of people who are going to have access to this information. They included the board members at that time, they included the finance people for the district, and they included the district's financial advisors. That's the permitted disclosure list. Those are the people who can hear what the idea is. It never got to a point of giving the information to the full board because it was impossible to schedule everything prior to the annual meeting. It was done after the annual meeting, and I couldn't agree more with Bob. There is a difference between legality and what's right, and this board opted to do. Said we know it's legal. We've gotten two legal opinions on point, and secondly, we don't like it. We're not going to do it, and that's where we ended up in 2001.
I guess we'll let the public decide.
I would just like to say that Mr. Hogan's allegations that perhaps I was lying at the February 2013 meeting when I said no to that, I plead stupidity. I had completely forgotten. I didn't know what you were asking, and so that I had totally, that was past history. And I did not remember what the whole thing even involved. And so that's why I said no. So I don't take kindly to being accused of being underhanded. That was just plain, pure Alzheimer's.
Well, I don't like to be accused of doing underhanded things either. This was done with the intentions of another method of funding. And that's the only reason we looked into it. And we decided not to do it when we decided it didn't seem right. It was unethical.
It went too far, is our point. It went too far. This man was the leading vote getter that year. He actually beat me. He creamed me. been in the community a long time. He's an honest person. He didn't like what was going on with all of this secrecy. And he said, I'm done. Okay? And then all it just got buried. Life went on. Goodbye, Tim. Nobody needs to know anything. That's a big thing. That's a big thing. We elected this guy. This community elected him. They had a right to an explanation. They had a right that the board would be concerned about it. It should have never gone this far. He should have never been denied access to information. And it just went on
You
and
keep
on and
repeating
on.
yourself, Mr. Holing. We need to move on.
I'm responding to Ms. Bohack. I was done. Thank you.
Are you fighting Tim Reedy's battles for him, Bob? Is that what you're doing here?
You know what? I don't know. Tim's here.
You know, Tim doesn't want to be part of this. He made that declaration at the beginning of this meeting. You know,
I'm fighting the battle. Actually, I'm fighting it for the community. The community's right to know.
Yeah.
You know, I love this. I love the community, and I respect the community. And that's who I'm fighting for. That's the answer to your question. I'll let the community fight their own battles too.
Let him fight his own
They
battles.
elected me, and I have a right. Thank you. I have a right. They need representation too. I am a representative of the community. That answers your question.
Yeah.
We have irreconcilable differences here. And why don't we just leave it at that?
Well, I for one, appreciate Mr. Weld's summary of this because it is exactly as my memory serves me. I believe it's the same as what Phil is thinking about. You know, we as a board felt this was not an appropriate course for us to take, although it was legal.
The gun
We
show's
could have
legal
done
too.
it.
The gun show's legal at that school.
We didn't think it was right, and we didn't do it. We signed no agreement, no money changed hands, and the only thing that we have to abide by going forward is the confidentiality agreement.
All right.
Is that enough for this discussion?
It was important to have this discussion. And whether we agree or not, that's irrelevant. We have our differences, that's fine. It's very important that this matter be put forward so that people can understand if they want to know. And I think this was a healthy discussion and a healthy going back and forth. It's good for the process, it's good for the district, and it was very healthy. And I think it was a good thing.
So what was the separation from BLP then? I guess once you sign this document, I mean, you just don't refer back to it forever? Or is it something that's under a 5-year, or is there a
But it's
term?
only the 11 people that signed the document who are upheld to it? So then how do I put the district in legal jeopardy?
Not necessarily you, whoever gave you information.
Nobody gave me the information. All you have to do is reverse engineer that budget. I mean, I spent
But
hours.
did you know about this person?
Well, is the acknowledgement that a non-disclosure agreement was signed, is that a violation of the non-disclosure agreement?
The trade secrets is...
But not the trade, the fact that the non-disclosure agreement exists, if that is acknowledged, does that mean it's a violation of that particular agreement?
The non-disclosure agreement doesn't have any restrictions. I mean, I'm not...
Well, okay, let's say I'm sitting in an administrator's meeting, and I say to the other principals, oh, I figured out a way to finance the school. And then the administrator says, oh, what do you mean, what do you mean? Oh, well, we figured out a way to, you know, to get more to get more money for the school without going to referendum. Oh, well, oh, wait, I can't say anymore because I signed a non-disclosure agreement. Is that a violation of the non-disclosure agreement?
I'm not tracking with you.
Is the acknowledgement that a non-disclosure agreement exists by one of the 11 people who are under its umbrella a violation of the non-disclosure agreement without giving the trade secrets?
No, the trade secret
Okay,
is...
then that's how I found out. Then
I don't
you-
believe so.
Well, that's right. You can call me a liar all you want.
Well, I had phone calls from people that told me who told me.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I know. Then it was confirmed.
The point is that BLP has sent a shot across the district's bow saying, there's been discussion had about my trade secret. You haven't violated the agreement yet, or if you have violated the agreement to this point in time, I'm going to give you a pass. But if you violate it again, I'm going to bring my lawyers in and I'm going to sue the district. If it, now is there any damages? I don't know. At this point, he's saying no, I don't have any damages.
So, but he can only bring suit to the 11 people,
No, he sues the district, Nate.
but,
He sues the district. I mean,
but,
I'm judgment proof compared to the district. The district is the one that's been committed.
This was a healthy discussion, and it's about time we had it.